Howdy train fans, welcome back to the Train Zone. We are restoring my father's American Flyer 343 post-war steam switcher engine. This guy was locked up. It had a bunch of dried out grease down on the gear case, down on the lower end, and the armature wouldn't spin at all. The reversing units, contact fingers, they were all burned out. Needed to replace those. Got the new ones installed up in there. Some up on the top here. And I had taken all the dried out grease out of this thing, soaked it with WD-40 in there, got the pivots working, got the armature spinning, got it all oiled up. And then I had bent these reversing units down to make the engine work because I wanted to get this thing going a little bit to look for clues and to see if it would run before I completely disassembled it apart, took it apart and cleaned the motor and go through the thing. You know, I wanted to see if it would work in the beginning before I completely disassembled it. So we've got her working. I'll show you the reversing units action here. Three-position reversing unit, forward, neutral, reverse, back to neutral, forward. She's in really good shape. Smoke unit's working really well. I did have to let the smoke fluid soak in there for a while. Let it soak in there for a few hours until it started to smoke. The wicks was dried out a little bit, needed to soak in, and then let it sit overnight, and it really started smoking a lot better then. This train's really neat because it has the backup light and the tender, and I wanted to show you a little tip. These wires under here go into this lower reversing unit finger plate here. These wires were routed underneath this piece and coming in the back. They were soldered that way, and I was having trouble with this cloth insulation, which is porous. The wires were shorting out on that solder right there. You can see that sharp tip right there. When I put this thing back together, it wasn't working. It was shorting out. And I couldn't figure out why for a few minutes. So I took it apart, pulled that piece off. I hadn't bent the tabs here, holding that on. And I unsoldered the wires, and then I soldered them in straight how they are right now, so they're not wrapped around underneath and coming in from the back side, coming in from the inside. And then it was working fine. And one thing that you need to do when you get these things, these fingers, they're not bent down enough from the factory. You need to bend these things down, preload these things down, bend them down so they're hanging down and they have more tension on that reversing unit barrel. And of course you need to clean that. You need to clean this thing down in here, the rotating drum that the fingers are touching on. All this has to be really clean. You have to inspect it, make sure that there's no pitting and that it doesn't need replaced also. With these trains being almost 70 years old, you always need to make sure you oil everything. Oil all the axle shafts. There's little ports cut away down in the side of there to get your needle point oiler down in there. There's a little groove cut. Rotate the armature around till it lines up, and you can get your needle point oiler down in there. Oil those. Oil the end of the armature up there. Oil the grease inside of here. Here's where all the really stiff grease was. Pull this cover off. The brushes, clean those if you need to. Clean your armature, the commutator there. These contacts on the axles, clean these. I still need to do that. the secondary pickups here and here, clean those, clean your wheels. You can see how dirty these still are. I'm going to clean those with some real fine grit sandpaper or some steel wool. I've got the tender shell back on. You're going to need to put some oil inside the choo-choo mechanism also. There's a little piston in there that makes the choo-choo chug-chug sound, and that'll be gummy and sticky in there. Maybe put some WD-40 in there to loosen up the gum, and then put some oil in there. And these come with the traction tires on these back wheels. I've scraped off this one, which was already halfway gone. I scraped it off. We have this new traction tire here. You have to cement these things on there, it looks like. Did a little research. This traction tire is still here. Gives it a lot more pulling power. They call that the pull more design of these engines. The American Flyer, early 1950s, 343 steam switcher engine. Running like a champ. Smoking like a freight train. Beautiful. Thanks for tuning into the Train Zone channel and watching the repair videos. Hope this helps you get yours running.